Okay, so now we can see how this is coming through, and hopefully it is going a lot better than how it was before. La da 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 da. Okay, so now we can see how this is coming through than how it was before. La da 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 da. Okay, so now we can see how this is coming through. Inception. How it was before. Alright, yeah. I left the wrong thing up. Gotta love it. Okay. Damn it. So annoying. Hold on. Hold on, people. Hey, it's me. I've got to throw all my stuff off, or delete a lot of videos now. Alright. Okay. Killing me.
Much more. I'm going to use an analogy. First,
alright, so let's see what this dude has to say. Alright. I started this video a couple days ago, and I was going to do like a not streamed version of this, but you know what? I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to pick up where I left off and, you know, see where this wild goose takes me, and provide no context. And, you know, you people will figure it out. And if you want to be nice, you will go watch this stuff on his channel. But yeah, so this is a video called part of a series that this man, Mr. Vervaeke, had. It was like a meditation course, right? And Vervaeke is a Tai Chi guy, and I'm a Tai Chi guy. So I'm interested to see what he has to say. I was sort of watching it before. Can't really remember what my thoughts are. Can't really remember what he said, you know, for the past 14 minutes. But we're going to dig in right here, and we'll see how I feel about it. So let's just carry on.
first of all, let me explain the one part of the analogy. Think about my glasses right now, how they frame my experience. And I'm seeing through them in both senses of the word. I'm seeing by means of them and beyond them. But I'm actually not aware of my glasses. I'm aware through them.
Yeah, so this is what he pulls from. He actually talks about this in his Awakening from the Meaning Crisis channel. But this is actually part of this book. Hold on. The Tacit Dimension by Michael Palanier. And oh man, I'm super flickery. I don't know how I'm gonna fix that, but that'll be a problem for later. Tacit Dimension, Michael Palanier. Actually, this is a pretty small book. If you notice, you know, wide margins and you know, decent size print. Not exactly small print, and total is about 90 pages. So, but actually pretty, and that's including the notes. Most of it is, it's very readable, actually. Interesting. I recommend it if you want to get a better idea of this man's thought process. I know I am probably going to be taking a lot of this man's ideas and trying to put them out into the world. And this whole channel streaming thing is part of that process. So right here he's doing the classic uh, seeing through and seeing, you know, the object of your framing, right? So he's going to demonstrate with his glasses. I just kind of did it with my glasses, and he'll probably explain it sometimes better than me, but in the meantime.
But sometimes my glasses distort my awareness. So what I have to do is I have to step back and not look through them, step back and look at them. Step
Okay.
back and look at them.
Yeah.
Normally, we're not looking at the process and patterns within our mind and body. We're looking through them at the world. And so
True.
what we want to do is we want to practice stepping back and looking at our mental framing rather than automatically and unconsciously looking through it. So how do we do that? Well, the primary way in which we are aware of the world is through our sensations. I'm touching the floor right now, right? So what I want to do is, instead of being aware through my sensations, I want to be aware of my sensations. And the way that I do that is I pick sensations that are easy to track, because they're sensations that are more touch. Vision is too fast to start with. So I want to start with sensations of touch, sort of bodily awareness, and something that's always with me, which is the sensations being generated in my abdomen by my breathing. So as I breathe in, I feel those sensations, and I mentally say to myself, the mental word that I'm silently saying to myself is only a lens. I don't concentrate on the word. I use it to focus my attention on those sensations, and I say in, and then out, in, and then out, tracking the change and flow of the sensations. Now what'll happen is I'll get distracted. It's called your monkey mind. It's like a monkey that leaps around and chatters, because you'll go into thinking about or sensing the world. So you won't be looking at your mind, you'll be looking through your mind. You'll be thinking about the laundry you have to do, remembering a conversation you had, worrying about a problem in your life, maybe listening to what's happening in your room or outside. Okay, so when that happens, you're going to step back and look at the distraction. You're not going to get involved with the content. So let's say you have a thought. Don't get involved with what your thought's about. Step back and label the process. Remember, we're trying to focus on the process and patterns. Label the process with an ing word, like thinking, imagining, wondering, complaining, listening. Okay? Don't worry about being super precise in your labeling. Just get what intuitively comes up first is more than sufficient. So you label your distraction with an ing word, and then you return your attention to the sensations in your breath. This is where we bring in the third thing we're training. We train our attitude. And I want to use an excellent analogy from Jack Kornfield, one of the people who brought Vipassana to North America in the 70s, I believe. He talks about you're training your monkey mind the way you're training a puppy dog to stay. So if I have a puppy dog in front of me and I'm trying to make it stay, and it goes off and, oh, stay, come on. If I do that, I will train the puppy dog to fight and fear me. And instead of befriending my mind, I will make it my worst enemy. The Dhammapada talks about there is no enemy worse than your own mind, and there is no ally greater than your own mind. You don't want to fight your puppy dog. Should I just feed it in the sense of just letting it do whatever it wants, right? Oh, well. No, that won't work either. If you just indulge the puppy dog, you won't train it. To befriend the puppy dog, you have to take that attitude of the attitude you would take towards a puppy dog, a loving, befriending patience. Oh, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. Oh, okay, there you are. Oh, there you are. Oh, there you are. And what you have to remember is you've spent a lifetime building up habits of mind and body, and you're putting very, very little time and attention against it in this practice. It's amazing that it actually works. It's like a gentle rain that can erode the tallest mountain, but it takes time. It takes time. Now, that brings me to a way in which people frequently misframe meditation and use it as a justification for not undertaking the practice. They say to themselves, or to me, if I'm talking to them, I can't meditate. My mind just goes off. And what they're saying is, I'm not.
Yeah, that's silly. But I get it. Meditating is boring. It's really boring. Um, when I was in high school, I had a pretty decent meditation process, and I don't know, I just kind of fell out of it after a while. I think I was a pretty intense Buddhist, and then I was like not so into it anymore. I was into more into girls, and it failed at that. But yeah, so um, developing a meditation practice. I mean, I at the beginning of this year, I had 3 solid months of meditation, and then I had to move, and it threw my whole shtick off kilter. And so now I'm back. I mean, I'm doing Tai Chi, 2 hours a day, which is something. But my sitting practice, it's garbage now, man. Probably wouldn't take too much to put it back into place, but yeah, I haven't yet. Haven't. Only so many hours in the day, and I prefer to wave my hands like clouds. You know what I'm saying? Ugh. Anyway.
Meditating unless my mind is wide open and empty, like some sort of Canadian tundra. That is to radically misframe. So there's a metaphor that's used in the tradition. That's like the person who says, I can't get the glass of water clean. The glass of water has got sort of mud in it, and they keep sticking a fork in, and they're trying to force the mud down, and it just won't go clean. I can't do this. And that, of course, they're doing the wrong thing. They're taking the wrong attitude. What you have to realize is you have to set conditions up so that your mind will settle clear. And that takes a long time, as I've just said. The way to frame this is to realize whenever you're catching yourself in a distraction, that's a moment of waking. Buddha means the awakened one. That's a moment of waking up and being able to return to your center. You should think of those moments of return as like doing reps in weight training. You're actually building the muscle of mindfulness. Then you are really meditating. So take a moment or two, adjust your posture any way you would like. And then what we're going to do is the following. We're going to go into a 15-minute sit. And what we need to do for that is we're going to close our eyes, and there's going to be like a few minutes where you take time to go to, I won't talk you through it this time, but you're going to go through the centering exercise. You're going to center your posture. Then you're going to center your mind on the sensations in your dantian. Remember, don't push your breathing, but find where your sensations are naturally falling and then follow them naturally. When you're distracted, label the distraction process with an ing word and then return to your breath, centering your attitude and framing this as all of those returns are wonderful. That means you are building the muscle of mindfulness. All right, let's now begin. Enjoy your sitting.
All right, yeah, that was pretty positive. That centering practice, I actually, so he kind of explained it before, but he always throws like 10,000 things in, and I relate to that because I go on my own little tangents. But it's basically going back and forth, feeling your weight, and finding where you're balanced. I do this every day as part of a standard set of Tai Chi things, but I do it standing up, just like a rocking back and forth. Rock. No, I sometimes do that too. But yeah, you just sort of feel where your weight is, and you're like, you sense it out, you feel it, and yeah, feels pretty good. Yeah, so that was a solid Vervaeke. Now, what are we gonna do next? Everyone, every no one. What are we going to do next? Choices. What are the choices? We could do the next one. Finding your roots. Well, let's do that one. This is called Finding Your Roots, and I have no idea. I didn't go. I was aware of his content back in 20. I was aware of his content back in 2018. I think. Wow, time flies. 4 years in this man's world. um, but I didn't go through this when he was doing it live. I had a job, unlike you slackers. Um, COVID, illnesses, diseases. What's wrong with you? Should have gone to work like the rest of us. Essential workers. Essential. Okay. So I'm just gonna pop this puppy back up, and we are going to engage.
Welcome. I'm John Vervaeke, and this is Meditating with Vervaeke. I'm a cognitive psychologist and a cognitive scientist at the University of Toronto. I study mindfulness scientifically, mindfulness and related phenomena like flow, mystical experiences, wisdom, etc. I've also been a practitioner of Vipassana meditation, meta-contemplation, Tai Chi Chuan, and Qigong for 29 years, and I've been teaching it professionally, introductory classes, for almost 20 years. This is a course. That means it's progressive. Classes build on each other. Monday and Thursday are teaching classes. Today is a teaching class. We'll go to 10 after 10. If this is your first time joining us, I recommend, instead of trying to sit with us today, you're welcome to sit if you wish, but it would probably be more helpful, because this will be recorded. You'll be able to watch it later at your leisure. Go back and watch day one at least, and then you'll see what you missed, and then you can join us tomorrow when we will sit together. So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Friday, and Saturdays, we just sit together from 9 to 10. I do a review. For each class, there's a Q&A section at the end, and I'll be able to answer your question. So as I said, today's a teaching class, and what I want to talk about today is the second of the core four that we're finding in order to properly befriend ourselves and set up an excellent foundation and platform for the cultivation of mindfulness. And the second of the core four is finding your root. Now, this is a particular instance where what I'm going to teach you has been deeply influenced by Tai Chi Chuan. So many people come to meditation because they're very interested in relaxing. And of course, that's extremely central on people's mind right now because of the extra stressors we're facing, which are significant. But we have to remember that we're trying to get a form of relaxation that's good for mindfulness, a form of relaxation that will actually more properly connect us in an adaptive manner to the world. So what I'm trying to do is get you to see the contrast between the normal relaxation that we all understood and to which we are, deeply habituated. This is the relaxation you do when you want to move towards falling asleep, right? You start to dull your mind, your body becomes insensitive, your awareness of the world decreases, your ability to monitor and manage your own mind decreases, and you pass into unconsciousness. And of course, this is tremendously valuable. And I'm not criticizing it in any way, but that's not what we want here. We don't want a relaxation that takes us into mindlessness. We want a relaxation that actually enhances and takes us deeper into mindfulness.
True.
So a good place to look for that is in the martial arts, especially things like Tai Chi Chuan, what are called the internal martial arts, because they really have spent a lot of time working on this kind of relaxation for mindfulness. So if you see like a martial artist, they'll often do something in the tradition I was taught. It was called sort of finding your root. I won't stand up, but they sink down and then their arms sink and you can see that they're kind of relaxing. Now, obviously what they're not trying to do there is to become unconscious, because that would be extremely dangerous. What are they doing? Well, the relaxation that we're doing, and I'm sort of modeling with my arms here, what they're doing is they're relaxing their arms because they're trying to get to a place where they're actually increasing the sensitivity in their arms and their hands, and they're also trying to find a place of stability. because that combination of stability and sensitivity and the kind of position they're taking is multi-apt for like transforming you don't fight with this posture, obviously,
Okay.
but this posture.
Multi-app. This is part of his whole speaking about chi. Now I can talk about this a little bit. So when I was training, my teachers had all these pithy little sayings, and one of them was, "Your hand's a hand, your body's a hand." And it was funny to watch. He has another video on chi about like a naturalistic explanation for chi, and it's maybe not what you think, or maybe exactly what you think, but basically, so he talks about how your hand is multi-apt, right? So what he means by that is you have a hand, right? Okay, cool, hand. What does a hand do? Well, it's a fist. Okay, cool. It also points. Okay, cool. You can also insult people, or spread love, or rock, you know. You can twist things. You can kind of fiddle it. You can play guitars. You can play multiple guitars at once, simultaneously, or asynchronously. Point is, your hand can do a lot of things, and so with that saying, your hand's a hand, your body's a hand, it's to note the way in which your body is kind of like your hand. That is, it's multi-apt. You can do lots of things. So given that you can do lots of things, potentially even infinite things, what are the implications of that? And that sort of goes into another thing that we're taught, which is called listening energy, which is a fancy way of saying feel more, but it's like a certain intention where you're feeling into and sensing your body, and the way sensing into the ground and into the world, and you're expanding your salience landscape so that it becomes super salient. You see what I did there? You see the name at the bottom of the screen? Super salient. Yeah, it's groovy shit, man. 5 out of 5 would recommend. And let's continue with the good sir.
It has you sort of multiply apt, really well set to make the adaptive changes rapidly that you need to make. So with rooting, what you're trying to do is relax till you find that point of sensitivity and stability. In the tradition, this is called, in the meditation tradition, this is called being as still as a mountain, but as alert as a warrior. And so the martial art metaphor that I'm using here is actually appropriate for this tradition. So I'm going to teach you how to find your...
Yeah, it's kind of a shame. A lot of Tai Chi is taught to elderly people, and it's very great for the elderly. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who teach this stuff, and they don't really get beyond the choreography. And the choreography is like a very small, like the most superficial part of thing. I mean, it's not once, but there's a cycle you have to go through. You learn the choreography, and then you learn all the internal things, and we're talking very precise internal awareness practice, right? And you learn how to become aware of all of that, to map your internal structure, and then learn how to use that structure when someone is applying pressure to you. That's the toy show or push hands part. But if you just do the choreography, I mean, yeah, that's going to give you some improvements. But if you're not paying attention to, like, my teacher called them the 13 physical points. They're also called the 13 principles or the 10 principles, just parts of the body. We can talk about them, actually, but probably later. If you're not paying attention to those things, then, I mean, you're not really doing Tai Chi. You're not really understanding what's going on. Now, to be clear, you got people, other people, martial art folk, like, you know, um, uh, what I'm trying to say is there are better ways to learn how to fight. Tai Chi, you can train Tai Chi where you're practicing it like you're going to get into a fight. And that's, it's fine. You can, the key there is you train in a Tai Chi way against like Jiu-Jitsu guys or Muay Thai guys, and you fight those guys, and you get properly beat up, and you go back and you practice and you learn. Um, but it's not really the vibe I'm going for. Like it's about I like my joints. I like my body. I want to like stay healthy. I want to feel more balanced. Feel more just generally pleased about life. Tuned into like the nice things. So that's why I do the thing. And like sure, I'll learn a little fighting on the side. That's cool. I want to do that too. Um, but I just do it for the flow state, man. I came for the powers and stayed for the flow state. Nothing like after like a couple hour session, you come out of it and you just like feel at one with everything. No drugs required. Nothing against those who ingest, but it's a cool way to get there, And it's it's not like when you're at your job and maybe it's a stressful job and you get into the zone and if you're like emergency services or something, you get into the zone and you have to pay attention to everything at once, and that can be fun and everything. But it's Tai Chi is a nice like low stress environment to be able to get into that kind of flowing that it just feels good. That's it. That's what it comes down to.
The root. Now, like before with finding your center, I will talk you through it. But so don't start doing it right now. Let me describe it to you so when I use certain phrases and terms, when I'm talking you through it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So what I'm going to ask you to do when we start it is bring your mind, your attention and your awareness to the top of your head. And then I'll say wash your attention. And what do I mean by wash? I mean, don't jump your attention from here to your eyes, but wash your attention awareness to your eye area. Okay? And then when I get to your eye area, I'll say, I want you to pause and look. And what I mean by that is I want you to become aware of this area. Any tension, any tightness, any tingling, the sensations that are here, any sense of any imminent information that's trying to come into your awareness that we're normally backgrounding or ignoring because it's not, super salient to us. And so what we want to do, right, is we want to look at it. Like, so notice the change when you're just seeing and I ask you to look. See, what happens when I ask you, right, go from just seeing me or just seeing the situation to looking over there, right? You're getting that added attention that is getting you present and coupled to that area. So you're looking. You're not trying to do anything. You're not trying to make yourself feel better. There might be unpleasant sensations there. So be it. And so you're going to do looking. And then I'll say listening. And this is even more that focusing. Like, seeing is to looking, hearing is to listening. But what I'm trying to pick up on that metaphorically is like when you're at a party and there's lots of people talking and you're listening to the person that's in front of you. So what you're doing is you're creating that special sensitivity channel for them. So you first look and then you're listening. You're really opening yourself up, sensitizing yourself, giving a dedicated channel of awareness and attention to what's going on here. Now you're going to do loosening. And so the loosening here is when you try.
What's funny? I've never seen this video, but I've seen a lot of his stuff, and maybe it leaked in somewhere else. But I was teaching somebody else Tai Chi the other day. I used a very similar metaphor to the listening part. You remember earlier when I said listening energy? Like, I had no idea he was going to go there with that. But yeah, listening. That channel, right? Like, it's weird to think about listening with your arm, right? So what does that mean? Like, how do you listen to your arm with your arm? That's kind of like when you start to like play with your mind's synesthetic capabilities. You know, like you can like expand outward. Cause like man, I say that word too much. Um, I don't think we really appreciate what this thing can do, and that we can actually sort of we have some measure. This is something he talks about in his naturalistic explanation of chi. He talks about that synesthesia is not a question of kind, but a question of degree. That is, we all have it to some degree. It's just synesthetes have it more often, or have it to a greater degree, typically, than what the average person does. But you hear about like people who do psychedelics and they start to like see colors and stuff. Like, we have the capability, and maybe we just don't pay attention enough to the fact that we have that capability and play with it. Because, day to day, like, why would you? Unless you're taught it specifically and then you practice it enough to get some of the advantages. But yeah, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Damn it.
Okay. Trying to relax the area. But this is a crucial point.
Crucial.
You're relaxing not to make anything go away or make anything better. You're loosening because what you're trying to do is get some stability and sensitivity. You're loosening to enhance the listening.
Enhance it.
That's the kind of relaxation that we're pursuing here. And then I'll say, let it flow. And what I mean by that is, let it fill your...
By the way, posterity, anyone who sees this video sometime in the future, please feel free to like and subscribe. Or, preferably, pop over to that Patreon page and think about becoming a contributing member. I sure could use the help. I like to make this content. I love talking about this kind of stuff, and would like to be able to do it more often, more consistently, and find good vibes out there. Find cool people, talk about this stuff. Yeah, please, thank you. Damn it. Okay.
Your awareness. Let it sort of unfold, almost like a movie that's starting to unfold and roll, and let it fill your awareness. Again, you're not trying to make anything happen. And you're not trying to make, bad sensations go away. You're trying to be as deeply present as possible. You're trying to increase sensitivity and yet remain deeply stable within that sensitivity.
I was thinking about this today. I heard this somewhere. I don't remember where I heard it. I'm sorry. I want to be more like this man and cite my sources properly, but I'm just not. I'm developing it. But I heard it somewhere. Tai Chi can be described as the aggressive protection of your balance. That is, your attention should so be actively engaged and aware of you maintaining your balance, such that anybody who tries to destabilize you they just can't, because you're just too balanced. And in the process of trying to uproot you because you're more balanced than them, they just sort of take care of themselves. And I think that's a good way of being in life. Like, don't worry about what's happening around you. just aggressively protect and defend your own balance, which requires self-awareness. And if you are self-aware enough, then if things come and they hassle you, you just know what to do. You just move out because you don't take it personally. You don't take it as an attack. You don't you don't see the outside world. That's not entirely true. My teacher had another saying where he said he got this from his teacher, but he said he wanted to be the most sensitive bear in the forest. That is to say, be a bear in the forest. It's not the worst thing to be, but also, you see, this is his words, not mine, but you see asshole number one strolling down the street, and you just, you go the other way. You're just aware enough, but you're also a bear enough. Aware enough, a bear enough. Aware enough, a bear enough. Coin it.
So letting it go. And then letting it go means you're not going to be attached to this. You're not going to get too enmeshed in it.
Enmeshed.
Because then you're going to let your attention wash. You're going to let sort of this sensation of opening, melting, draining, letting your attention and awareness wash to your heart area. And then we'll repeat it. We'll do
dirty heart.
Looking, listening, loosening, letting it flow, letting it go. Opening, melting, draining to the dantian, and then opening and repeating that whole process here, and then down to where you can feel where you're touching your pillow, touching your chair, right? And repeat it there at that point of contact. Because what you're trying to do, especially at that point of contact, is really enhance your self of groundedness, connectedness. When the Buddha achieved enlightenment, he touched the earth. Okay? So you're touching the earth, you're grounded. This is like the root of a tree. And then what you want to do is I'll ask you to imagine. And this is imagination. We use imagination. This is the sense of imagination, not as imaginary, but imaginal. We're using imagination to train perception. And we now have some very good problems. You're going to use imagination to enhance that sense of groundedness by imagining all of this pooled awareness.
Using imagination to train perception. There was a book I got. I've just been working my way through this man's reading list, and it'll probably take me a lifetime. But he's talking about here the work of Corbin. I'm not French. I can't speak French. Corbin. Something, can't remember his first name, but I have the book. I have it. It's somewhere, not the Pierre Hadot. Henry Corbin. He was an Islamic scholar, but he talked a lot about imagination. I don't know. I haven't. The book I have is a part of a trilogy. The book is called. I'm just looking at All the World and Icon. It's a good book. I got some of the way through it. I've moved on to other things though, and I want to get back into it. But it's a lot, man. It's a lot. Anyway, back to it. Let's get rooted.
And attention, everything that's sort of drained down like a liquid, seeking 3 feet below you, like the root of a tree, growing, right? Seeking stability, seeking nourishment. I'll walk you through several points, doing a back line, taking you all the way down your back. And then we'll leave that. So we'll have a front root, a back root, and then we'll go through a center root. You'll have to imagine in the center of your head, right?
Why are we frozen? Huh?
Chest, abdomen.
Oh, maybe that was.
And then a center root. And then they all become one root reaching into the earth. And then I'll ask you to make any micro adjustments necessary to get your root and your center to be fully integrated together. Your root is actually just a deep extension and development of your being centered. So what we're going to do today is the following.
What are we doing?
There'll be silence for a bit. Everybody will close their eyes. There'll be silence. And I'll give people time to do the centering. Always center before your root. I'm teaching you these in an order for an explicit purpose. Okay? So find your center. Then I'll talk you through the rooting exercise. I'll talk you all the way through it. And then when the rooting exercise is done, we won't come out of the exercise. What I'll say is, savor what it is like to be deeply centered and rooted, and then begin to meditate. Follow your breath, the way I've taught you. So what's going to happen, one more time, there'll be silence, you'll be centering. It'll be a little bit jarring because I'll have to then start speaking to you. I'll try and do that as sort of gently as possible. I will talk you through the rooting exercise. Back center. Remember, looking, coming into a coupled contact, listening, really sensitizing yourself, loosening, relaxing, which is trying to find an increased sensitivity but a stability within it, letting it flow, letting it unfold and deeply talk to you, and then letting it go, not getting attached or immersed and enmeshed in it, letting your attention and awareness open, melt, drain, wash down to the next area where we stop. After I talk you through the first, the front, the second, the back, the third, the center, I will then say, now begin, after you savor your center and your root, begin to meditate. Okay?
Now I've done the front and the back, I think. But the center one is a little trickier. I'm interested to see where this goes.
So that's what we're going to do. So again,
Might
about a
skip
couple
ahead a
minutes
bit.
of silence to begin.
Might want to watch
We'll set the
something.
timer a little.
Okay.
Just let it talk to you.
Talk.
Looking.
Looking.
Not trying to make anything happen.
Stop it.
Now listening. Relaxing the area, but to enhance the listening. Enhance the flow of information. You're stable within that flow. Now letting it flow. Really let it fill and unfold. It fills your awareness. It unfolds throughout your mind. Now letting it go. Letting your attention wash down your throat, opening, melting, draining, till you come to your heart area. Stopping in your heart area, looking. Listening. Loosening for the sake of listening. Right near your navel. Opening, melting, draining to there.
A lot of silence. It's good.
Letting it go.
It's good to be silent. Good to relax.
Opening, melting,
Be
draining
silent.
to a spot in the very center of your abdomen. I'll pick up on a couple that we didn't get to last time. Prima asked, is it okay to focus on a sound you're hearing? Actually, no. Hearing or listening to something in your environment is another distractor. So if you're hearing a sound, step back and label it with an ing word, hearing or listening, and then return your attention to your breath.
Okay, well, that was fine. I mean, I didn't do the thing, so, you know, some people. Some people. Some people. Anyway, let me just pop that puppy off. Whoop, that was me. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna do a little music. I got my little guitar, and since no one's here anyway, I'm gonna just flip through some things. So, I've been interested in. I've been playing guitar for a long time, but very, very casually. I would say I've been doing it for about 20 years. I'm probably at like the level of someone who's been playing for 5 years really intensely. I think. Maybe. But I've been really interested in frequencies. Not, I mean, physics, yeah, it's cool. But ratios, the ratios between the notes, right? So, like, what are their qualities? You know, I used to do a fair amount of blues, you know. I've never been much of an acoustic guy, so my fingers are weak and sad. Weak fingers. So that's another thing. Right hand technique and strengthening up my left hand technique and just sort of, you know, vibing. And just like, I've been really wanting to understand. I had a friend in college who seemed to indicate to me, I don't know if this is what he was saying, but how I took it was that each chord has a different sort of quality to it. I actually don't know if this is an A or not, but it is in an A formation. I think my guitar is tuned to E, but I'm not sure. So like, my friend, he was saying that each chord has its own particular quality, and that's cool. I don't hear it. I get nothing. Nada. But you know, like strumming, just feeling things, right? So like I said, my right hand technique is garbage. Like, I use a pick. I'm somewhat passable as a guitarist, you know. Like, I can play some funky stuff. But been wanting to improve, get a little better at that. I really want to learn flamenco guitar. But I'm interested in, I guess you could say the mathematics of music, but more like maybe the felt mathematics of music, like, sound waves. We're perpetually hearing things, Yeah, my precision is garbage. So yeah, it's the practice I've been doing is just feeling the music. So I remember that multi-app thing I was talking about before, right? When I first started guitar, I was a kid. So I feel like I've gone kind of around the world a couple times, couple few times. And now I'm rediscovering, like, whoa, I have this thing. And I've trained it to some degree. But I wasn't really trying. I just kind of didn't stop. And I got somewhat better. Now, I'm older. Maybe a little modicum better. Modicum wiser. Now I'm like, okay, so I have this hand. It's multi-apped. Like, what are the possibilities, What is this thing? It's kind of wild, Like, what is it? It's a hole in some wood, A hole in some wood. Kind of messed up a little bit, but... And some wire. A hole in some wood and some wire. Kind of a nice sound, right? I'm gonna have an electric guitar too, and I'm gonna do more on that because it's basically cheating. Love that atonal stuff, but So maybe we'll watch some guitar videos on here too. I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm gonna do whatever I want because who knows if anyone will ever tune in. And if they don't, I get to do whatever I want. And if they do, I get to get captured by my audience and make tons of money because those are clearly the only options. But yeah, vibes, vibes. Alright. So, I wanted to talk a bit about virtue ethics today. Because there's some people on the internet that'll talk some shit about virtue ethics. And to be perfectly honest, I'm a little on the fence. I like to listen to a bunch of these philosophy guys ramble on in my ears, and even some political guys talk about their ethical systems, right? And you got the utilitarians. Most of these people who are arguing about this shit online are lefties, and I want to be a little more apolitical. I think if you ground yourself in politics, you're probably missing a few layers of well, it's just easy to get caught up in your tribe. There's this lady, Brittany something, who talks about bubbles, right? And that really reminds me of there's this guy, Robert Anton Wilson, who's a psychedelic author, and he used to talk about he used to borrow from the guy from Harvard, the LSD Harvard professor. Anyway, the idea was reality tunnels, right? Everyone's in their reality tunnels. And this Brittany, I think her last name is Simon, Brittany Simon, YouTuber lady, she calls them bubbles, right? Everyone exists in their own bubbles. And that reminds me of something I saw on Wittgenstein's idea of word games. Language games, right? Language games, underscore. I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but just, no one's here, so who cares? Language games. What's a language game? My understanding of a language game is that when you use specific words, even if they have a different meaning in a different context, it's perfectly appropriate to acknowledge that there's a context in which we use language and to understand the implicit assumptions, right? Unless you're someone new to the game of basketball, you don't need it to be described to you that it's a three-pointer. You can just talk about three-pointers, and it's just assumed, given the context, that everyone knows what it is. And if you don't, you get brought up to scuff. But there is no, I think the implication is that there's no fundamental, not that there's no fundamental truth to words, but words can't describe fundamental truths. They can only describe truths within a particular context in a way of thinking about the world, which is another way I think of saying, all models are wrong, which is a statistics thing. But anyway, major digression, back it up. We were talking about ethical systems, and I wanted to talk about the fact that virtue ethics, I think, gets a bad rap. You got the utilitarians, people like Stephen Bonnell, otherwise known as Destiny, who call it a ethical grab bag or something. I think I've heard him say some shit like that. And, he might be right. And there's a guy, Perspective Philosophy, I forget his real name, but he's a deontologist, Hegelian, and I don't think he even thinks about virtue. I mean, he probably has some sympathies for it. And I've heard, there's a dude, Kane B, and I honestly don't know if he's ever put forward his ethical system. So, I mean, my point here is maybe to see, whether there's something valuable in virtue ethics. I have a bit of a sympathy for virtue ethics because the Buddhism got in young, you know. At a young age, impressionable. I put a lot of time and effort into it. In a lot of ways, it still shapes my thinking, and I find a lot of sympathy for. I have a lot of sympathy or empathy for the idea that there we have to work on ourselves. And I got this book recently, Sophie Grace Chappell, um, and she is a virtue ethicist who is proposing uh, a, a Platonic virtue ethics. Now, virtue ethics typically in the past has its roots in Aristotle, Um, and Aristotle's whole, I guess, idea was, character traits. I haven't read a lot of Aristotle. I haven't read a lot of Plato. I have them working my way through. It's a lot to get to. But this lady, um, she draws from Iris Murdoch, who's another Vervaeke read. And I read her Sovereignty of the Good. And, for a novelist, it's pretty dense. Like I follow some of it, but I have to go through it like a couple more times to really and like slowly and put out the argument. And so this book, it's called "Knowing What to Do: Imagination, Virtue, and Platonism in Ethics." Right? I'll just hold it up. Knowing what to do. You can see this book. I'm working my way through it. My initial impressions are it's an interesting idea. I've only really worked my way through the intro and the conclusion, and I'm trying to get a grasp of her prescriptions of what to do. But if I had to put forth what I think she's saying, and as I read it, maybe I'll come back and report back. But what I think she's saying is something like, there are ways in which we won't know how to be ethical until we transform our perspective on the world. And we have to do that through the creative use of imagination to become better people. Now, it seems almost commonsensical that I sort of wonder, how do you argue against it? Like, I'm sure, I mean, I don't think virtue ethics is great for policy. If you're in government, maybe virtue ethics is not the place you go to, you know, write what ought to be done. Maybe that's more the job for utilitarianism, the cost benefit analysis, or cost benefit analysis, or like medical ethics needs to rely heavily on the fundamental goods, and balancing like a deep moral system on top of somewhat cost benefit analysis take. That's cool, but at the same time, individuals aren't a multiplicity, at least not a multiplicity of individuals. We are not more than one conscious entity, though we can, I think, sort of tune in to other conscious entities and coordinate our behavior and action, la da 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 da. I think we have to develop ourselves. And so, like, her prescription is we become more ethical by contemplating the form of the good, right? And sort of the notion of having an imagination of what the good might be can help us to aspire to transform. And I already see like connections to other stuff like Agnes Callard's book on aspiration, and Laurie Paul's transformative experiences, right? Like philosophy, right? How do we become more than what we are, right? I see the connections there, and I'm like, okay, fine, great, cool. If that's what this argument fundamentally rests on, that's great. And I don't know how anyone can really argue with that. I mean, we would need to talk about what kinds of exercises allow one to contemplate the form of the good, right? But I think that calls for like a curriculum. But I think people just want answers. They want ready, steadfast systems of answers. And I have to agree with one of the arguments in this book about how system thinking has their limitations, right? Like, I think the goal of having a system, an ethical system, is to adhere to that system. And that adherence to that system, like if you're a utilitarian, I think we would say you ought to adhere to the principles of utilitarianism. So if you're off in ethics land and you're thinking about, what you ought to do, we would consider a person who does what they say in terms of their ethical process and follows through. I think that's a lot easier said than done. And so, I mean, I think that's why we would say someone who's, utilitarian and follows through, and, like if they snub their nose at other systems and they adhere strictly to their system, then we might consider that person in that respect to have a kind of virtue. I think that, and I think that we want to see that in people. So it's hard to escape. I think it's hard to escape virtue ethics, regardless of how thoroughly you believe in your particular system. Like, I think in order to say something like we ought to do something, in order to prescribe something, I think you have to have at least an aspiration to virtue. And so why not just start there? I mean, maybe that's not a great argument. We can flesh that out. I want to flesh it out. I want to find the strongest argument for virtue ethics and go to war with some people. I don't really want to go to war with people, but I think could have some interesting discussions. I'm a baby in this. I've got a lot to get through, and I don't know if anyone else has really written on this particular topic. Maybe I could talk to her. That'd be cool. So maybe I'll take some notes and I'll reach out. Maybe I'll have her on the channel, and we can talk about it. And I'll try to do a little research and get the best content I can find, I can get. Out of that. Okay. So, once again, Knowing What to Do, book about Platonic virtue ethics. Feel free to check it out. I don't think it has a Kindle version. I had to buy it. I've been trying to reduce the amount of books I buy in hardcover because I might be moving and books are annoying to move as much as I like having them. Okay, so where are we at? We've been doing about an hour. That's cool. 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 I dig it. So what do we do now? I talked about virtue ethics. Followed. Looked at some Vervaeke clips. I'm gonna see. Oh, I should probably try and find this stuff before I get on. So there are others of us springing up, you know. I've met some of these people in the Vervaeke Discord, right? Um, so some of us are springing up. All right, you know what might be interesting to go over. So we have this weird corner of the internet, right? Um, there's a few of us, and there's this guy, Paul Vanderklay. Um, I think I'm in his Discord, um, but I haven't really done a lot of hanging out. I'm a bit antisocial. I tend to hang back, for better or worse. So, but I've been listening to his stuff for a while. He's interesting because like a few years ago he did a little debate with Vosh, and I enjoyed that. It was like a weird moment of serendipity where like two random worlds that I've been listening to sort of collided, and it was a unique experience. We might go over that at some point. It's undervalued, and I think we'll find more value as this little weird part of the internet starts to get bigger. But I kind of want to see what he had to say about this Jordan Peterson, Richard Dawkins thingy. I didn't see this, so we can watch some of his commentary. I might get bored, but we can watch some of his commentary and see if he has anything. Gotta love that beard, right? It's a massive beard. Looks kind of well groomed, actually. It's got the Santa Claus look going on. Okay, let's take a little listen.
Hi, this is Paul. This is the conversation between Jordan Peterson and Richard Dawkins, and this conversation, at least in terms of early listeners, has gotten extremely mixed reviews from people that I've asked about it on Twitter. Some people said, oh, you should definitely listen to it. A number of other people, and people who are very...
You know, I'll say this. I'm glad I'm like just not on Twitter. Twitter sounds like a hellscape. And, you know, for as much as, like, I walk around all day with these things on, just listen to people talk, right? But for as much as I do that, I don't know. Twitter just, it seems soul rotting, you know? It seems like you go there if you want to just seethe and stew and like I know the appeal, like I get it, but it's exhausting after a while, you know. It is fun sometimes, for sure.
Very much Jordan Peterson fans basically said, no, it's a waste of time. I did not find this conversation a waste of time. Now, there's a bunch of things about this conversation that, let's say, as a conversation, it's not a great one. I think this happened when Jordan was in Oxford. The whole setting indicates that. He seemed very excited to talk to Richard Dawkins, which means he didn't do a lot of listening. In fact, somewhere in the middle of the conversation, he basically admits, well, I haven't let you do enough talking, but then he goes on to not let Richard Dawkins do enough talking. And Dawkins was very patient with him, which I think was lovely. But there's a lot of stuff in this conversation that is, well, it's worth it partly because you can watch exactly what Peterson is wrestling with respect to many of these questions that are right now sort of at the center.
So I didn't really explain who this guy was. I just sort of realized it. He's a Calvinist minister who got really into Vervaeke land, and that's my pet name for this. Also dubbed the weird corner of the internet. But like he got really into this Vervaeke stuff, and probably about the same time I did, because there was a period where everyone was super into Jordan Peterson, and they were like really into it, and I sort of jumped on the train a little bit, like I was listening to what he was saying, and I was listening really close, and I was listening really close, and I was trying to like understand. I didn't really get it. I mean, at the time, like young and all that stuff seemed a little too far on the woo side of things for me, and I've always been I haven't always been a practical sort of person, but I've always been a practical sort of person, if you know what I mean. Like underneath, I've dabbled in my own woos, but like I've cycled, I've cycled. When I was listening to Jordan Peterson's stuff, like it was fine, it was fine. He's very passionate, cool, Some of his takes are, like, maybe not. But, I don't think everything he says is awful. I think some of the stuff he says is good. Some of his conversations with Vervaeke have been good, and if you don't know about those, you should. You probably just know about the bullshit stuff, that culture war stuff. I mean, honestly, you're better off avoiding that whole piece, but it is very entertaining. I like to sit on the be a spectator, like not someone in the field, not someone in the bleachers, but maybe someone who's sort of like down the road, maybe having a cookout or something, and sort of like listening to it on the radio but knowing that it's close, kind of thing. Like it's entertaining, but I wouldn't mind a few degrees of separation. Anyway, so this guy's like a Calvinist minister. He's really weird for a Calvinist minister to be into this space. Like, you think about Calvinists and you think like, fire and brimstone and you're going to hell and there's nothing you can do about it. He's an interesting guy. He's not... he's one of the good ones. I think. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know him. But, I think he threads that needle and treads that line where it's like, could you pin him down on anything? No, like, because he lives in the nuance, because he's ministers have to be kind of political figures in that they have to manage their sheep, and so they can't really have super strong opinions. They can just imply. They can't explicate their strong opinions. They can just imply them, for better and worse. Like I'm a very I know how to keep my opinions to myself, and I'm threading that line, and so I'm one to talk, right? But I think there's something admirable to biting bullets and taking ownership. I just think often there's just so many hills I don't want to die on. And, if you're a minister, you got to do a similar kind of thing. Because you're a leader. You're not a maverick. You're not a Sigma. You're trying to take care of people. And that can be nice.
Center of the conversation with respect
even if it can be horrible.
Religion and rationality and ontology, very much in the line of the videos that I released quite recently of John Vervaeke's conversation with Lantern Jack and Wolfgang Smith's conversation with on the meaning code. And as I listened to this, I thought, in many ways, this conversation makes more sense if you start at the end of it and move towards the front of it. And I think you'll see what I mean. Now, right here at the end, when time runs out, a little alarm goes off, and Richard Dawkins is like, well, I'm out of here. And well, let's just dive in there.
I want to ask you one final question. I know we're running out of time, but I don't care. I want to ask you this question. Okay. I talked to Sam Harris. I've talked to Sam Harris 5 times. And the first time I talked to him, I was extremely ill. And we got bogged down in a discussion of truth. Pragmatism versus objective. Something, we've been bandying that back and forth, and it's a tough nut to crack. And then we had 4 more discussions that were all public. And there was a tremendous amount of interest in them, which was quite stunning. It was staggering. We had 10,000 people in Dublin to one, and about the same to the O in London. And we were discussing issues just like this, you know. And I made some mistakes dealing with Sam, because I had a point I wanted to make, you know. And it was, I suppose, the point of this pragmatism in some sense in its relationship to evolutionary biology. And so I was trying to sort of win the argument. And I have found, as a consequence, let's say, of a baptism by fire, that that's not a good way to approach. Like, one of the things I really wanted to do with you, I hope we managed this today, was...
Now right there, what we're going to... One of the well, I don't know, maybe I should play this little clip first before we get into it, because it's so central to, I think, seeing something in this conversation.
I mean, for example, if you have a quantum particle, it will not be located in general in any particular point in space. In fact, there's a probability that it is given any 2 regions in space, there's a certain probability that the particle is in that region.
Okay, now, if you watch the whole Peterson-Dawkins, Peterson will mention, he actually gets the title wrong in the video, The Metaphysical Club, which is a book that he recommended a long time ago. It's really a fascinating book. After he mentioned it, I picked it up, I read it. Talks about Charles Peirce and the advent. Charles Peirce was basically trying to figure out how stars could be located when the instruments were insufficient at the time to locate stars. And Peirce developed the mathematics of statistics and probability, and that's what is used. Now, here again, Wolfgang Smith talks about that physicists via math can talk about the probability of the location of a particle, but he's going to go into the question of measurement again.
So these quantum particles...
Is that true? The Metaphysical Club, A Story of Ideas in America. 2001 book by Louis Menand, an American writer. Let's just... The book recounts the lives and intellectual work of a handful of thinkers primarily responsible for the philosophical concept of pragmatism, a principal feature of American philosophical achievement. William James, Oliver Wendell, Charles Sanders Peirce, and John Dewey. Pragmatism proved to be very influential on modern thought, for example, in spurring movements in modern legal thought, such as legal realism. This is actually a book I think I should get, because I relate to the pragmatists. There's sort of born out of the transcendentalists and my family history, like my grandmother, some influence of the transcendentalists, and I don't think the pragmatists were really influential, but I was exposed to some Dewey early on because I was homeschooled for a semester. You know, when you're raised by hippies, you might come across some things like that. The Metaphysical Club. I'm gonna make a book list. So I think that's a good one. Not a fast reader. The who's the author? Louise Menand. Louise? Okay, cool. All right. For later viewing.
Those are very, very strange entities. You can't really conceive of them except in mathematical terms. But what puzzled physicists is that when they make a measurement in an instant, as it were, this particle, instead of being spread out over vast regions of space, obtains a particular position.
So in other words, the influence of measuring or attention or observation impacts the particle, the location of the particle.
The measured particle is in a given place and time. And so this is something that puzzled the physicists. How is it possible for an act of measurement to collapse this probability wave and give a definite position to particles which have no definite positions before the act of measurement? And believe it or not, physicists have been kicking this so-called measurement problem around for a good 100 years, almost, more like 90. For about 90 years, they've been speculating on this with no actual solution in sight. The weirdest ideas are presented by them.
Whenever someone says something like that, the way that it's presented, it makes me feel like I don't know who these people are. I have no idea who these people are, but it makes me feel like there's something they're saying is that basically, do you see what science can explain? Therefore, it must be something, supernatural. Because science doesn't seem to have any answers. And I mean, I don't know if that's what these people are talking about, but it's just sort of, there's like I feel a resistance, so I'm not sure what, I guess I'll watch some more. Well, shut up.
In order to resolve this conundrum, but I believe it's still an open question in the physics world. So this is what got me into thinking about quantum mechanics, and I came to a very simple conclusion. The reason measurement is not comprehensible to the physicist is that the measuring instrument itself is not really a physical thing. It is not the kind of thing that the physicist studies or describes in his equations.
The measuring thing itself is not a part of, let's say, the level of physics. All right? The measuring thing itself is above the level of physics because it comes from above and looks down upon it in order to make the measurement. That's key. This is almost identical to Brett Weinstein, what he says about, well, you have this genetic code that's running around, but you can deny your code by virtue of consciousness. All right? By virtue of consciousness, you can deny your code, because what happens with consciousness, this is sort of Pageauian language from the Brett Weinstein talk, you kind of come above and you look down, and this is analogous to this measurement. It's observation, it's selection, it's relevance realization. Now, Vervaeke will come up in Peterson's conversation with Dawkins in a little clip a little bit earlier, because remember, I went to the end. Now I'm going to go back to other places. But think about it this way again. It's to measure something. In a sense, you transcend out of the thing to look at it with a thing separate from itself in order to evaluate it. That's in very many ways connected to the question, the frame problem, and the question of frames. So keeping that in mind, continue to listen to Peterson and Dawkins.
To ask you questions and find out more about what you thought, like in a real genuine manner, not to win any of that, none of that. The last time I talked to Sam...
Now, in a sense, what Peterson is saying in terms of his mode of conversation is that this measurement that he wished to, in a sense, impose upon his conversation partner distorted the conversation. We can understand that in a rhetorical sense. We can understand that in a relational sense. But what he's doing is realizing, in a sense, the frame that he was using to pursue the conversation. And he had a sense that that was a lesser frame than the one in which he's trying to pursue in this case.
All I did was ask him questions. And we had by far the best discussion we've ever had.
Okay.
And so through that discussion, I was alerted to reasons why he was so antipathetic to we've ever. All I did.
Than the one in which he's trying to pursue. And
I was not paying attention. I'm not gonna lie. Is he talking about Vervaeke just now? I have to go back. I'm sorry. I am so sorry for existing.
To, in a sense, impose upon his conversation partner distorted the conversation. We can understand that in a rhetorical sense. We can understand that in a relational sense. But what he's doing is realizing, in a sense, the frame that he was using to pursue the conversation. And he had a sense that that was a lesser frame than the one in which he's trying to pursue in this case.
All I did was ask him questions. And we had by far the best discussion we've ever had.
Okay.
And so through that discussion, I was alerted
That's what he's talking
to
about. Mr.
reasons
Harris.
why he was so antipathetic to the idea of religion.
Okay.
And so I thought so Sam is very obsessed with the idea of totalitarian atrocity. I would say evil, fundamentally, if you wanted to make it metaphysical. But you could say restrictive, dogmatic tribalism of the sort that makes us demonize and destroy people, ideas,
My alarm,
institutions.
by the way, for 6 o'clock.
So two things happen there. Number one, I think Peterson rightly sees what's at the heart of motivating Sam Harris. And as Peterson says, it's a good motivation. The world has been filled with atrocities. Religious motivations have often come to the fore. And so, Sam's idea is to sort of, maybe you can, if you get rid of religious motivations, you can get rid of the atrocities. It's a good motive. And then right at this point, Richard Dawkins' alarm goes off, and it's time to quit. I'm going to back away from this guy. But of course, Peterson's going to hang on to him for another 7 minutes until someone comes to fetch Richard Dawkins.
But so, what is it you want to ask me? Because we have run out of time.
And now we're an hour and 20 minutes into this, and okay. So you wanted to ask me something. You've been talking at me for an hour and 20 minutes. What exactly is it that you want to ask me?
I want to ask you, when you talk about religion,
Yes.
do you identify the religious impulse, let's say, or even the religious phenomena, with the totalitarian proclivity for dogmatic certainty?
So, in another life, I was dating a new atheist in the 2010s, early 2010s. Went to the atheist conference and super atheist. I wasn't actually. I had lots of friends who were, though, and I was vibing with them. Christopher Hitchens, Dawkins, Sam Harris. Honestly, the one I knew least about was Dennett, and Dennett's probably the most relevant to me right now. I I mean, I want to read some of his stuff, but haven't gotten to it. But you know, it's interesting to hear this conversation. Weird reality folding in on itself, you know? It's a superhero match, kind of. Neither of these people I would really consider superheroes, but, you know, when bubbles collide, or when reality tunnels merge, something like that.
And the potential acceleration of aggression and atrocity as a consequence.
So he basically asks him, well, are you like Sam Harris in this? Do you think that's the problem with religion?
No.
There's the answer. No. I guess we got to wrap this up in 2 minutes, but it's a good thing we didn't.
I care first and foremost about scientific truth. And so to me, it is an...
Now, this is where he's going to get into, well, I care first and foremost about scientific truth. Okay, so now we've really located Richard Dawkins as sort of a modernist. This is his worldview, and this is what he cares first. But this question of what on earth we mean by truth, that's really, again, what a lot of this conversation is about.
It is a scientific question whether there is a supernatural power, creative power, intelligence in the universe. I think that's a very fascinating question. I think that if that were true, it would be the most important scientific truth if there is. That would be...
Now that's an amazing statement from Richard Dawkins. Now, part of the difficulty that he has is exactly the same difficulty that Brett Weinstein had in that video that I played, where he's having, a number of years ago now, a conversation with Jordan Peterson and Jonathan Pageau, where Brett Weinstein basically says that the scientific method is the method by which we judge all truth. The problem is, you can't even, as Vervaeke points out often, you can't evaluate the veracity of the scientific method by its own standard. You need another standard with which to evaluate it, and you can't use that one. This point has been made innumerable times, and it just sort of goes over most people's heads as it goes over Richard Dawkins' head. And in many ways, this is the question that Peterson pursues through this conversation. Again, this is sort of a lousy conversation, but there are some really nice little nugget speeches by Peterson in this video.
It would be a fundamentally different kind of universe that we live in if there is a creative intelligence.
Okay, now, that, of course, is his conclusion. But how on earth will you answer that question by science? And in many ways, if you look at, again, Vervaeke's 4 Ps, you really only get at most of those questions, these questions of fittedness, by your other Ps, by your participatory, by your procedural, by your perspectival. You're not going to get at the question scientifically. You can't put the universe, in a sense, into the test tube in that way. I've been reading C.S. Lewis's Miracles again, and Lewis makes this kind of point again and again through the book. So
although I have a secondary interest in negative consequences of religion and so on, especially in Islam, my fundamental interest is in the scientific truth, which I believe is a scientific question, even if it can't be answered by scientific means.
So at least he acknowledges that, but I don't think it's fundamentally a scientific question.
There either is a God or there isn't, and that there either is a creator or not at the base of the universe, an intelligence. I think there's not. I think that intelligence is something that comes late into the universe as a consequence of a long evolutionary process. It happens.
Okay, so intelligence comes late in the universe. Okay, well, what do you mean by intelligence? Now, I think basically what he means by intelligence is the ability to pursue a telos, a purpose, an outcome intentionally with agency and power. Now, I'm preparing for Synod. That's why I'm not putting out videos at the rate that I usually do. And I found out that I have to have an hour of, somebody has to sit and school me about power for an hour. And I was thinking about that. And I was thinking that's such a lousy word to use, because what we're really talking about is this capacity to consciously, with intentionality, pursue a desired outcome using the agency and the resources, and marshaling agencies and resources that we can colonize and employ. That's really what we're talking about here. And basically, Richard Dawkins looks around and says, I don't think the universe as it is constituted now is the product of such a being. The difficult question that you have, of course, is, and this is exactly what Lewis deals with in his book Miracles, where do you get the capacity to not only pursue this, but to recognize that you are pursuing this and to measure your own accomplishments in pursuing this? That's just an emergent property, and Lewis makes the point, as does Alvin Plantinga, as has many people throughout the 20th century. If this is merely a product of chaos or irrationality devoid of this capacity, then even the pursuit, the intentional, willful, purpose of pursuit, call it rationality, call it design, that is undermined. Lewis makes that point again and again. Alvin Plantinga makes that point. Dawkins simply says, we have this capacity. And he's right. We do have this.
This guy really likes C.S. Lewis. I really liked The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe growing up. It was pretty good, solid. It was a banger. It was banging. Especially the old movie version. I mean, the book was good. I was a kid. It was read to me. I didn't read it, but that old movie version, that guy who really liked his Turkish delight, you know. Classic.
This capacity. But where does that capacity come from? And is, in fact, our perception of ourselves having this capacity itself illusory? Can you demonstrate that, given the fact that many times you pursue an outcome and you don't achieve it, other times you pursue the outcome and you do perceive it, and you do achieve it, so therefore, maybe, in fact, your entire view of rationality is illusory. I don't think it is, but given the basis of his worldview, it's very hard to demonstrate that it isn't.
Happened here, no doubt happened, or probably happened in other parts of the universe.
And do you distinguish between intelligence and consciousness?
And great question. Because, of course, when you get to Brett Weinstein talking to Jonathan Peugeot, well, it's all consciousness.
Goodness.
It's absolutely normative sense. And I'll tell you, at the end of this, I hope you'll see where it came from.
All right, okay.
Okay, so all those creatures, every creature, and presumably every creature on every other planet where there are creatures, which I assume there are, has the same purpose, to get their informational stuff lodged as deeply in the future as possible.
Now pay attention. Remember Wolfgang Smith. Where does the measurement, the observation of this purpose? Now, he said it's not in the system. There's no purpose in the system. We bring purpose to the system. Well, where do we get it? Well, we're one level up, looking down at it.
But the ways in which one can lodge one's informational stuff, in our case, our genes, deeply into the future, vary tremendously. That's what biological diversity is, right? It's a diversity of tools for getting genes into the future. the tool that we were awarded that made humans truly special is consciousness, right? What does consciousness do?
Now again, why use that word? Why not use rationality? Is your dog not conscious? Well, my dog has a degree of rationality. Sort of find the food bowl and tries to please.
Did he mean consciousness, though? I don't know. Some of these people don't really disambiguate their terms, and it makes it hard to have conversations. And then 99% of the time, not 99, I don't know what percent, I haven't done the statistics, okay? But a lot of these conversations are, only a little more satisfying than watching a political debate. And it's just like, ugh, are we getting anywhere here? Maybe we should start by defining our terms. Maybe.
Please me. Chris Arnatti just recently posted on Twitter a really cool video of he's feeding a turtle, this big snapping turtle coming up out of a swamp or something, and the snapping turtle now sits there and waits for him because he knows that the hot dog is coming. So, well, what exactly are we talking about, and why is this connected to this word consciousness?
Consciousness, I believe, allows us to take two minds and to pool their different understanding of the world, their different kinds of expertise.
Okay, so now he's even going up levels of consciousness.
And to basically asymmetrically parallel process difficult puzzles that neither of us could solve together. And then you can scale that up, and you can have a whole campfire of people parallel processing difficult problems, like how do we survive in this new habitat that our ancestors didn't know anything about, right? That's a tool. It's a means to an end, and the end is let's get our genes as deeply into the future as possible. However,
which of course is not in the system itself, but he always locates it in the system. But then if you ask, he'll say, no, but it's not really in the system. There's no purpose in the system. There's no intentionality in the system. There's no rationality in the system. But consciousness is always sort of this, well, oh, there it is.
For this purpose, no.
Okay, for this purpose, no.
Probably happened in other parts of the universe.
And do you distinguish between intelligence and consciousness?
For this purpose, no.
Okay, for this purpose, no.
Yes.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then. Do you think that sexual selection is mediated by consciousness/intelligence?
In those species that have consciousness, yes. I mean,
Then I would ask you, to what degree do you think that consciousness operates as a fundamental mechanism of selection and shaping? Because
I mean, that is a very profoundly interesting question. And I mean, sexual
mechanism of selection operates. Do you think that consciousness operates as a fundamental mechanism of selection and shaping? Because
I mean, that is a very profoundly interesting question. And I mean, sexual selection happens in insects, which I do not think are conscious. And so
yeah, well, that's a tough one. I mean, I know butterflies can detect a deviation from symmetry in their partners at the part of 1 in a million.
So there is sexual selection throughout the animal kingdom, and consciousness
can happen without consciousness.
I think so. Yes.
But let's look
in humans. Yes, I should think so.
Okay, so when I look at religious epistemology cross-culturally, I see a bipartite structure at the bottom of the hypothesizing. There's an idea that there's a material substrate that consists of a kind of latent potential. That might be one way of looking at it. And that there's the action of a forming process on top of that. And it looks to me like it's something like, what would you call?
So in other words, you've already got a layer. You've got sort of this dumb matter, and then you've got this other process on topping that is colonizing and employing that matter in order to achieve something.
Call it an intuitive apprehension of the relationship between consciousness and the rise to complexity of living forms. And the reason that I'm curious about that from an evolutionary perspective is that I can't see how forget about unconscious sexual selection for a minute. We'll just parse that off. Because maybe there are gradations of consciousness, I don't know. Insects do some damn complex things. And have you ever seen that BBC clip of the pufferfish making a sculpture?
Oh, yes, I think I have. Yes,
I mean,
yes.
That's quite something.
It
Because
is
that
wonderful,
pufferfish
yes.
is...
We should talk on the way to the
yes,
chapel.
okay,
We can do that.
Okay. Well, it's hard.
We should talk on the way to the chapel. Yes, you should. Where are you going? You're going to the chapel. Oh, is that just a room, like any other room?
This guy.
Day to talk to you, to Penrose and you at the same day.
I know, yes.
You will like Roger.
So I don't think it's completely out of the realm of question that part of the apprehension that there's a spirit that gives rise to material order is a metaphysical reflection of the idea that consciousness shapes biological being through sexual selection.
But that spirit would have to have been around before evolution got started. And
Listen to that again.
so you
Of the eyes to question that part of the apprehension that there's a spirit that gives rise to material order is a metaphysical reflection of the idea that consciousness shapes biological being through sexual selection.
But that spirit would have to have been around before evolution got started.
Yes, it would.
And so you got to...
Well, fair enough.
It's a big thing.
Yes,
Yeah, it's a big thing.
that's a big problem. But then,
Why is it a problem? It's a problem because of your worldview. It's not a problem because it seems to be true.
I guess a rejoinder to that, in some sense,
I
would
should
be,
have expected as much.
do you think it's a nonsensical proposition to... I mean, one of the things I was talking to Dr. Penrose today about was...
I can be pretty smug myself, but there's a kind of smugness that he does. He's like, I'm right. And these people are wrong. Because they haven't thought more than a layer deep in, their thinking. Right? I mean, I appreciate that things have deeper layers, right? But I think we can all probably benefit from not being so smug, or maybe we should all be more smug. Who knows? I like being smug, especially when I'm right. When I'm wrong and smug, then I just get embarrassed.
He believes that consciousness, in some sense, stands outside the domain of algorithmic computation.
I know he does, yes.
And we discussed in some detail why he believes that. And I'm very curious about that. My brother-in-law is probably the world's foremost that he thinks will have the computational power of a human brain. And he was the first person to build a 64-bit chip, and he did that in 1985.
Okay.
And so we've had a lot of discussions about the limits of AI. So this is an AI-optimized chip, by the way.
Yes. This
And my brother-in-law thinks that
And no, what do we mean by AI? Don't we mean something that can, in a sense, do exactly like we do? Go one level up to measure? That's what we asked Google Photos to do. I put in...
Okay, I think I'm done with this. But it's only a half hour in. Yeah, but I gotta leave soon, and this, it's fine. It's fine. Maybe we'll come back to it at a later date. But there's probably more interesting stuff for me that I'm probably gonna want to look upon, to gander at. Let's see. Okay. Let's pop that puppy off. All right. I might just call it. Only really wanted to be on for about 4 more minutes anyway. So we'll probably just end it here. Empty. Empty. And alone.